In previous lecture, we have seen how the fluid film bearing imparts instability in the rotor bearing system. Today, we will take up another kind of damping. One is internal damping and another is a symmetric shaft. And because of these two cases, how the instability comes into the rotor system, we will try to study. In this internal damping, we will see how it comes into the system initially, and then we will, with simple mathematical model, we will try to analyze this instability, in which we will find that there will be a threshold speed above which instability can occur. And for a symmetrical shaft case, we will see there will be a band of instability zone where the rotor can be unstable, and below and above these bands we will find that there will be stable system. So, before going into detail, just let us see what we will be covering here. So, instability in rotor system with internal damping and with a symmetrical shaft, and we will see that internal damping or material damping, or sometimes we call it as hysteretic damping, how it comes into the system. And this asymmetrical shaft stiffness rotor model, we will see how we can able to analyze with this the instability in the rotor system. So, coming to the internal damping, which comes from various sources like elastic hysteretic of shaft material. Due to flexural vibration of the shaft, the intermolecular interaction take place within the shaft material, and that gives some kind of heat generation within the shaft material. So, basically this kinetic energy converts into the heat in the form of hysteresis. Even in the shaft, during the flexural vibration, the inside fiber shear take place during whirling because of tension and compression of the fiber. And apart from this, frictional forces between two mating parts with interference fit can have this kind of internal damping. So, in this particular case, all such damping sources can impart a common damping, which we call as internal damping. This internal damping is having slightly different characteristic as compared to the viscous damping. So, let us understand the internal damping when we have one shaft and there is a hub or disc, and this ring fit on this. So, during vibration or whirling, this shaft bends, and because of the compression here already onto the shaft, because of interference, and during the bending we will see that the upper fiber of the shaft will elongate and the lower one will get compressed, and these forces will resist that particular motion, extension of the shaft or contraction of the shaft, and this gives internal damping between two mating parts having some kind of interference fit. Now, coming to the difference between the hysteretic damping and the viscous damping. Internal damping force, which is nothing but hysteretic damping, is proportional to the rate of shaft deformation, but the viscous damping is proportional to the absolute velocity of the rotor. So, one is rate of shaft deformation, and another damping force is proportional to the absolute velocity of the rotor. and because of this internal damping, direction changes along with the shaft rotation. It is convenient to analyze the internal damping in rotating coordinate system. So now we will analyze the internal damping with a very simple mathematical model of rotor system, and in this particular case we will derive the equation of motion in rotating coordinate system, and once we obtain the equation of motion in rotating coordinate system, we will introduce the hysteretic damping or internal damping at that stage. So initially the equation of motion will be deriving only with the internal that is only with the viscous damping, and subsequently we will be introducing the hysteretic damping. So before going to the equation of motion, let us see the rotating coordinate system and its transformation. So xy is stationary coordinate system, xi and eta is rotating coordinate system, and we want to transform the equation of motion in xy axis coordinate system to the rotating coordinate system. Before that, we can able to relate these two coordinate system. So with elementary geometry we can able to relate that. Here we can able to see this is the center of the shaft, and here OD is the x distance, OF is the y distance, and similarly OH is the OE is the xi distance, and OG is the eta distance. We need to relate these two coordinates. That means we have x and y, the geometrical center of the shaft as the coordinate of the geometrical center of the shaft in x and y coordinate, and another is xi and eta. We need to relate these two. So we can able to see with simple geometry we can able to write x is equal to xi cos omega t minus nu sin omega t. This omega t is the angle at particular time t of the rotating coordinate system. At t time is equal to 0, we can assume that both coordinates are in the same position, but as time passes this rotating coordinate system rotates with the spin speed of the shaft. Similarly, y can be related as xi sin omega t plus eta cos omega t. These are standard trigonometry relations. Now we are defining a complex displacement S, which is defined as x plus j y. J is the complex quantity, that is root of. In the rotating coordinate system, similarly we are defining zeta is equal to xi plus j eta. S and xi are the complex coordinates in stationary coordinate and rotating coordinate system. Now these two in place of x and y, from previous expression we can able to write this in terms of zeta, xi and eta, and similarly y we can able to write in terms of these two, and this we can able to rearrange by taking common of xi term and eta term, and we can able to see within the this bracket is e j omega t, and this if we take common I, this can be converted into j e j omega t, and here you can able to see this, and this e j omega t is common, so that can be taken out. So xi plus j eta, and xi plus j eta is nothing but zeta here, so that can be substituted. So this is the transformation basically in complex domain from stationary coordinate system to rotating coordinate system, and this will be using to transform the equation of motion of the rotor system. Because we will be having derivatives of the this complex displacement in the equation of motion, so we can able to take the derivative with respect to time, because zeta and this both are time dependent. So once we differentiate, we will get two components, two parts. So first derivative and then derivative of the second term. This can be clubbed like this. Similarly, if we take another derivative of this, we will be having derivative of this, and then we will be getting basically 4 terms. So these are the 4 terms after differentiation of this, which can be simplified as this, because 2 terms are common, so they will add up to give this. So we have complex displacement in stationary coordinate system, and its derivative we have already obtained. Now let us see the equation of motion of a simple rotor system, in which we have mass of the rotor, viscous damping which may come from bearing or any other source, and K is the stiffness of the shaft. So this is the equation of motion in the horizontal direction. Similarly, this is the equation of motion in the vertical direction. In this case, we have not considered any cross coupling of the stiffness or damping, only simple direct stiffness and damping we have considered. Cv is the viscous damping. At present, we have not introduced the hysteretic damping. As I told earlier, once we will transform this equation of motion in the rotating coordinate system, then we will introduce the viscous damping, because it will be convenient to introduce at that stage. So now we are multiplying the second equation by j, adding it to 1 first equation. So we can able to get the equation of motion in a complex domain in stationary coordinate system. So m s double dot plus cv s dot plus ks is equal to 0. Now we can able to substitute the transformation which we developed in the previous slides. So s double dot we obtained earlier. So this is the s double dot. S dot 2 terms was there. So this is the s, and s in terms of zeta. So basically this equation of motion, after substituting the transformation, now it has come into the rotating coordinate system, because now here it is in the terms of zeta, that is in the rotating coordinate system complex coordinate, and because zeta is defined as xi plus j eta, so we can able to split this equation in real part and imaginary part with the help of this expression. So in the direction of xi, we will get this equation. We can see that j term is there, so that will give basically, after multiplying this, eta term here. Otherwise xi terms will be there at any other place. Wherever j is there, we will be getting the eta term, and plus and minus sign we need to take care of that. And this is as it is, only a real part we have considered. So this is the real part, and this is the imaginary part of this complex equation. So this equation is in the direction of xi, and this is the equation of motion of the rotor in the eta direction. Now coming to the hysteretic damping, here this is the xi direction, this is the eta direction. We have earlier noted that the hysteretic damping or internal damping is, it acts proportional to the that is rate of deformation of the shaft, because this coordinate system xi and eta is attached to the is rotating with the spin speed. So the rate of deformation of the shaft will be xi dot and eta dot, and if we multiply with hysteretic damping coefficient, this will give the damping force, hysteretic internal damping force in the direction of xi and in the direction of eta. So now we can able to see that because we have already derived the equation of motion in the xi direction and eta direction, and if we want to include the hysteretic damping, we just need to include these 2 terms in the previous equation of motion. So this equation of motion is exactly same, only thing now we have added this hysteretic damping in this model. So this equation is exactly same, only thing now additional term of the hysteretic damping CH we added. CV is already there in this. Now this equation is ready for doing the stability analysis of the system. So again we will combine these 2 equations. That means the second equation will multiply by j and add it to 1, first equation. So again we can get the equation of motion in the rotating complex coordinate system, that is zeta, and all other terms are similar, only the additional term you can able to see is coming due to the hysteretic damping. This was already there, and now we can able to, because we have some terms of zeta dot and zeta, so we can able to rearrange this equation so that we have terms of zeta double dot in one place, zeta dot in another place, and zeta another place. So now we can able to assume the solution of this in this form, in which zeta naught is a complex world amplitude in rotating coordinate system, j lambda naught t. Lambda naught is the relative world frequency or eigenvalue of the system. This is relative because we are assuming the solution in the rotating coordinate system. The absolute world frequency will be, and the relative frequency will be defined like this. That means, because the difference is at which this particular rotating system is rotating. So relative world frequency or the eigenvalue is defined as absolute world frequency minus the speed. So with this we can able to get the with this relation we can able to get the absolute world frequency also. So the assumed solution will be substituting in the equation of motion in the rotating coordinate system itself. For that we need derivatives of the zeta and zeta double dot. So we can able to substitute this in equation of motion, and with that we will get a polynomial in the lambda naught square. So you can able to see this is a polynomial in lambda naught square, this square the quadratic polynomial, and the form of this polynomial, because is slightly different as compared to the previous case of the damping fluid film bearing damping case. You can able to see some complex terms are also there. So basically more general form of this quadratic equation could be like this, in which the real part and imaginary part of the epsilon is this lambda square term is there. Similarly for lambda naught term and for the constant term. So this is a more general form of this. So stability criteria for this equation are provided in the next slide. So this is the stability criteria, Routh-Hurwitz stability criteria for a polynomial with complex coefficients. So this is the determinant should be minus of this should be greater than 0. So if we compare these two equations, we can able to see that A naught is minus m and B naught is 0. So like that we can able to compare these two equations, and we can able to get the this A and B coefficients. And if we substitute this here, from first determinant we will get CH plus CV is equal should be greater than 0. This is the one condition. Second criteria is this one. So if we substitute various coefficients and if we simplify this, we will get expression like this, in which we have defined the omega nf square as k by m, and in turn this can be written as omega square less than this quantity. And because this ratio is generally small, so this can be neglected. So if we neglect this, we will get basically, we take the square root, the speed when it is less than this quantity will be having system stable. That means when there is no damping in the system, so when the speed is less than the natural frequency, undamped natural frequency of the system, we will be having stability. But if there is a viscous damping in the system and this, then the stability, because this factor will be positive, and so the total factor will be more than 1. So we see that with the damping, the stability, the speed below which the system is stable increases, and especially if we increase the viscous damping in the system, we can able to increase the stability of the system by some amount. So from this we can able to see that the system is always stable even in the presence of hysteretic damping below the critical speed. So that we already seen that if below the critical speed there is no instability, and the presence of viscous damping, this one has the effect of raising the speed at which the system become unstable. So if we can provide more viscous damping in the system by in the form of the damper or the in the bearing, we can have this instability speed we can able to raise up to certain level. Now through a simple example we will see that how we can able to analyze by numerical integration this kind of instability. So basically we will be integrating this kind of equation of motion for various speeds, and we will try to see the response, how it changes, especially if you are giving some small disturbance, how the response changes, and we will be solving this for without any external excitation. So this is the problem in which we are considering a Jeffcott rotor of mass is given, diameter of the shaft is given, length is given, and the viscous damping and hysteretic damping ratio, let us say we are assuming as is 0.2, and viscous damping ratio of the system, that zeta is 0.01. This is the damping ratio. For the shaft, the material property like E is given here. Now we want to obtain the response in time domain or the orbit plot for some initial condition at various speeds. This is the undamped natural frequency. So at various speeds we will be obtaining these plots, and we will see how it behaves. So coming to the equation of motion in the rotating coordinate system, this was the equation of motion with the hysteretic damping. We chose the here the transformation from the rotating to this stationary coordinate system will be just opposite. So if we take the derivative of this, we will get this, and the second derivative will give this. If we substitute this in equation of motion, we will get back the equation of motion in the stationary coordinate system like this. So you can able to see this is the additional term which is coming because of the hysteretic damping. Other terms were there in the equation of motion. Now we can able to take the real part of this and imaginary part of this to get the these two equation, because we defined the S is equal to x plus jy. So this is the equation of motion in the x direction, and this is in the y direction. Now you can able to see there is hysteretic damping terms coming in these places, and not only it is coming here, but here also it is coming, and these two equations are now coupled, because in x direction y term is also coming because of internal damping, and also in this we have x term in the y direction. So to solve this equation by direct integration method, obviously we need to solve these two equations simultaneously. We can use any numerical integration method, and this is the displacement with time when we are considering the speed is equal to 0.2 of the natural frequency of the system, and because there is no excitation in the system, so we have given some initial condition, so that once we disturb the system, we will see that it stabilizes after some time. This is the orbit plot, that means x direction and y direction displacement plot with respect to time. So we are given some initial disturbance. So this is the initial condition. From here we are leaving the rotor, so is going like this and is trying to stabilize. So this is for very short duration of time, but if we take more time, we can see that we started from here and gradually it is converging toward this point. So, because here clarity is not there, so initially we showed this for very short duration how it goes, but it after some time it goes to here, as we have seen in the very first slide also. After some time it goes to the stable solution. So, this is for one of the speed. Now, when we are close to the natural frequency, this is the for a given disturbance, this kind of here again is going toward the lesser amplitude. So, it looks the system is stable. This is the orbit plot. So, this is for very short duration, but if we take long time, then gradually you will see that is going toward the stable zone. Similarly, at different speed we have tried like 1.6 times the natural frequency. So, in this case also is stabilizes. So, it is for short duration, this is the initial condition, and then it comes like this, but for long duration, so gradually it is converging to steady state solution. Then if we take omega is equal to 1.6, then we found that the system is unstable for a given initial disturbance. The amplitude grows with time. Here also can able to see is gradually increasing. So, this is the orbit plot. So, this condition is giving us the instability when we are operating the rotor at 1.2 times this. So, we have seen that this particular instability is always occurs above the natural frequency of the system, and not necessary at all speed above the natural frequency, but at some of the speeds this instability can occur, that we have demonstrated here. Now, we will take another case in which the rotor is having, the shaft is having asymmetry. That means it has shaft stiffness different in two principal direction. Generally in rotors, especially in generators, we find that we cut some kind of grooves for providing the windings, and those are not symmetrically placed onto the rotor, and because of that we have two principal directions, and the stiffness varies in these two principal direction, and continuously basically it varies when we rotate the rotor. So, this is one particular typical rotor of the generator, in which you can see there are slots which are running axially, and these are provided generally for providing windings in the generator, and here also it is there, but some part of the rotor is solid. So, we can expect that in this particular case the effective area of the shaft will be something like this, because we have removed the material. So, it will be something like this, and we expect that now because of this effective area here depth and here are different. So, when rotor is having this orientation and this orientation, first case and second case, the stiffness, let us say about one of the axis XX, this will be different as compared to this axis which is YY. So, here we expect about this axis the stiffness will be less as compared to this one. So, we expect because of its own weight the rotor will deflect more in this configuration than this configuration, and generally to compensate the decrease in the stiffness, some kind of slots are provided in this solid part which is called stiffness compensating slots, so that we can able to reduce the stiffness in this direction also. But even with that we have variation of the stiffness as the shaft rotates. So, we can able to see when it is having some different orientation, we will be having change in the stiffness. So, basically for such system the stiffness changes with time, and this particular behavior gives instability into the rotor system. Now, let us see this. If we attach a rotating coordinate system along the two principal direction of the rotor, and if we analyze the equation of motion in this rotating coordinate system, then it will be convenient to analyze. So, here also we will be choosing the rotating coordinate system and we will be obtaining the equation of motion in the rotating coordinate system itself, and in fact we will be defining the stiffness of the shaft in these two directions in the rotating coordinate system itself. This is the equation of motion. So, basically this is m x double dot, and we have seen that x and zeta and xi and eta, how they are related earlier we have defined. So, basically this is the s double dot term, and this is x double dot term, and this one is the stiffness in the xi direction, and if you multiply by the xi displacement we will get the elastic force. So, basically this is the Newton's second law of motion, in which this is the sum of external force, in this particular case only the stiffness force we are considering, is equal to the inertia force. So, basically this whole term is x double dot, but it has been transformed to the rotating coordinate system, and this we can able to write like this. This is the rotating coordinate system equation of motion. Similarly, in the eta direction, this is the force, this is the elastic, the shaft stiffness in the eta direction. Now, you can able to see there are the stiffness in two directions, two principal directions are different, eta, psi and eta, and this is basically y double dot transformed into the rotating coordinate system. So, this is the equation of motion in the rotating coordinate system in the eta direction. So, we have two equations, this and this, in the rotating coordinate system. Now, we can able to assume the solution of this as the amplitude and the frequency part, amplitude and frequency part. Here all the lambda naught is again relative Hall frequency or the eigenvalue of the problem. Eta naught and xi naught, they are the complex amplitude in rotating coordinate system. So, these equations which we assumed, we need to substitute in these two equation. So, for that we need to take derivative of this with respect to single derivative and double derivative. So, those things if we do it, we will get the equation in this form. So, because this will be common, so this can be taken out. Similarly, in the second, so this is in the xi direction and this is in the eta direction. So, these are the two equation of motion. Now, it has been converted into the basically frequency domain. They cannot be 0. So, they can be eliminated. So, the remaining term we can able to put in this form. So, basically we are writing this in a matrix form, in which that is xi naught and eta naught is this particular vector, and all the coefficients of these in these equations are. So, this is coefficient of the eta naught in the first equation, this is zeta naught of first equation, this is for the eta naught. Similarly, this is for the zeta naught in the xi naught in the first equation and eta naught in the this equation. So, basically these two equations are put in a matrix form, and this is homogeneous equation, and for non-trivial solution of this, the determinant of this matrix should be 0, and that gives us a polynomial of this form, quadratic polynomial in lambda naught square. And in this particular case, because this is a now polynomial with the real coefficients, so we know Routh-Hurwitz stability criteria. First criteria was that all the coefficients should have same sign. So, here we have 1, so this is a positive. Here these terms are all square terms, so they will be positive. This term should be positive, then only we can have the stability. So, if this is positive, that means this should be basically this is the instability for instability this should be 0. If it is if it is less than 0, that means the system, this will be negative, that means system will be unstable or unstable. So, this is the condition that for instability we will be having this condition. Now, in this we have defined this lambda naught, sorry, omega xi as root of k xi by m. This is just terminology, this is not a natural frequency. Similarly, this is another terminology. So, we are defined like this, and the stiffness is such that omega xi is less than omega eta. So, the choice of the coordinate system is such that we have this condition, let us say. So, that means this is less than this, and so in this particular case if we see there are 3 conditions possible when we have the speed. If first case is when speed is less than omega xi. So, if this is the case, we will see that this is less than this. So, this is positive and this also be positive. So, this will be this will not be satisfied, that means system will be stable. If this is satisfying, we will be getting the unstable condition. So, when both are positive, this whole quantity is positive. So, that is not less than 0. So, we will be having stable solution. Second case, when omega is more than omega xi, but omega is less than omega eta. In that case, this is more than this. So, this quantity is negative, but this is less than this. So, this is positive. So, negative and positive becomes negative. That means, for this case the system will be unstable, because now it is satisfying this condition, and this is the condition. So, when omega is in this range, we are finding that this is becoming negative. The third condition is when speed is greater than omega eta, then this is positive, this is also positive. So, it is not satisfying the this instability condition. So, that means only rotor will be unstable when it is operating between these 2 range, and otherwise it will be stable. So, here we have seen that basically we are getting a band of frequency range at which the system will be unstable, but beyond that band the system will be stable. This particular analysis we did by assuming that whatever the vibrational frequency is there, that is same as the spin speed of the shaft, but vibrational frequency can be different as compared to spin speed of the shaft. So, for that particular case, the band which we obtained earlier, we took in this vibrational frequency is equal to spin speed of the shaft, but if we generalize, so this vibrational frequency whenever is between these 2 band will be having instability, and for a case of such system in which we have a symmetrical shaft in 2 principal directions, we find that during one rotation there will be twice the change of the stiffness would take place. So, if rotor is rotating, we will find that the speed equal to twice of the speed will be having vibrational frequency because of the this asymmetric shaft property, and because of that this nu will be 2 omega, because the vibration frequency is twice for this case. Earlier case when we took nu is equal to omega, that could be because of maybe unbalance in the system, because of that kind of frequency of vibration can take place, but this 2 omega would take place in this particular case when we have the symmetrical shaft. So, from this we can able to see that we can divide throughout by 2. So, we will get this band also. So, when omega is between these two range, also we will be having instability zone. So, apart from the previous one, which was this band, we have additional a band in which we have unstable vibrations, and that is due to asymmetric property of the shaft. And because of that, the whirling frequency itself is twice the speed of the shaft. So, basically we are finding that this is one of the band in which the system will be unstable, and there will be another band on which your system will be unstable, and we may find that these two bands may be independent of each other, or sometimes they may overlap depending upon the values of this omega. So, we will take up one example in which we will show this particular case in which we have asymmetrical shaft, how the instability zones can be obtained. So, in this particular case, we are taking a elliptical shaft with a length of 1 meter, and the major and minor axis of the shafts are this. So, this may be due to the manufacturing defect, this kind of geometry we may get, or sometimes maybe the requirement of the system. The shaft carries a disc of this mass, and the material property of the shaft is this. We need to find out the zone of instability in the rotor due to a symmetrical cross section of the shaft, and because of this asymmetrical cross section, we will be having asymmetrical stiffness of the shaft. So, various geometrical property we can able to obtain. So, this is the second moment of area for elliptical shaft. We can able to get in two principal directions, and with that we can able to get for the boundary condition of the problem, the stiffness in two directions, two principal directions we can able to obtain. So, there is slight deviation because of the elliptical cross section in these two. Now, these two parameter omega xi and omega eta can be obtained from as it has been defined. So, the range is this one, the omega xi is this and omega eta is this much. So, now as we analyzed already that if the rotor is operating below this 2 speed range, we will be having unstable operation. So, one band of unstable operation will be from here to here, and another one because of the twice the speed of the whirl frequency due to the asymmetric nature of the shaft stiffness, half of this, that means this will be additional zone where the system will be unstable. So, in the whole range, if we want the amplitude versus this, so we will be having two parameter this. So, this is 633 and this is 667. So, in this range system will be unstable. Similarly, we will be having another band. So, 317 and 334, this will be another band in which the system will be unstable. So, and if we are operating in this region or in this region or above this, we expect this system will be stable. In the previous lecture, we did the instability analysis of fluid film bearing, that was linearized case. If we want to consider the nonlinear bearing fluid film forces, then we need to use the Reynolds equation to obtain that. So, here briefly I am outlining how the instability analysis can be done for fluid film force if nonlinearity we want to consider. So, in this particular case, this is the rotor, and this we have fluid film forces in two direction, radial direction and the tangential direction. Weight of the journal is here. This could be unbalanced force which is rotating with some speed, and the position of the rotor is given as eccentricity and the altitude angle. Now, if we want to write the equation of motion of this, obviously we can able to balance the force in the radial direction and tangential direction. So, this is the force balance in the radial direction. So, this is the fluid film force in the radial direction. This unbalanced force component of this in the radial direction will be cos psi. Then weight component of that in the radial direction, because that is angle is phi, cos phi is equal to the mass and the radial acceleration. So, this is due to the radial motion and this is due to the angular motion. So, this is a radial acceleration, this is centripetal acceleration. Similarly, we can able to write the force balance in the tangential direction. So, this is the fluid film force in tangential direction, this is the unbalanced force, this is the weight component and this is the mass and the acceleration in the tangential direction. So, this is due to the rotation and this is due basically this is Coriolis component of acceleration because of radial motion and the angular velocity. So, this equation of motion only thing is this radial force and the tangential force from the fluid film need to obtain from the pressure of the fluid like this. So, over the inside the surface of the bearing from 0 to 2 pi angle, and from the length of the bearing we need to integrate this pressure, which we can obtain this pressure we can able to obtain from the Reynolds equation. So, component of this pressure is in the radial direction, this cos theta we are measuring from this. So, this will give the force in the radial direction and in the tangential direction, and this equation of motion can be integrated with respect to time for ER, that is eccentricity ratio, which is time dependent, and for the altitude angle. And we can plot, let us say, eccentricity ratio. So, if for stable system, if initial condition is somewhere here and after some time it stabilizes to this solid line, we can call the system as stable, or even if you are disturbing the rotor inside of this orbit should come to the solid elliptical path, then the system will be stable. For whatever the initial condition, the system will stabilize. For unstable case, the response ER will increase like this. This kind of thing we have seen in the case of static damping also. So, by direct integration of the response, the differential equation to get the response will give us this kind of whether the system is stable or unstable. So, this is another way by which we can able to obtain the instability of the system, especially when the fluid film forces are nonlinear in nature. So, in today's lecture we considered 2-3 aspects. Initially we started with the internal damping, and we saw that how the internal damping can provide instability in the rotor system. Especially we saw the role of viscous damping when the internal damping is also there. The internal viscous damping basically stabilizes the system. So, if we are providing more viscous damping, the system the speed of threshold stability threshold can be increased. And in the another case, when we considered the shaft asymmetry, we found that not a single speed, but a band of speed at which the rotor can become unstable. That band of speed below or above those bands, the rotor will be stable, but that kind of bands may be there at other reasons also, as we have seen when we consider the twice the speed of the rotor if some vibration components are there. So, the second band of unstable zone can also be there. Apart from that, we have seen that if we want to consider the nonlinearity of the fluid film bearing, how we can able to obtain the system stability. Basically, we need to time integrate the equation of motion, and if the response is increases continuously for a particular disturbance, we can able to conclude that the system is stable or unstable. And if it is stabilizing to a particular orbit, then we can able to say the system is stable. In the next class, we will take up some more kind of instability in which we can have the rotor can go into the unbounded response. That means the system may become unstable because of other kind of. In the next class, we will see some other source of instability, and we will try to analyze how the instability can give some kind of unbounded response to the rotor system.